All right, today we're jumping into a real medical detective story. It's this incredible puzzle that's hidden inside what seems like a simple diagnosis, malnutrition. It's all about two patients, both severely malnourished, but somehow they look like they're from different worlds.
So here's the big mystery. You've got two people, both technically starving. One looks exactly what you'd picture, skeletal, incredibly thin. But the other, well, they might not even look underweight at all. They're swollen, puffy, and just as sick. So how on earth is that possible? It all comes down to how the body decides to handle a crisis.
Both of these wildly different conditions actually fall under one big umbrella term, protein energy malnutrition, or PEM. This is our starting point. Think of PEM as a whole spectrum, and at the two extreme ends, you find these two clinical pictures that for a long time really had doctors scratching their heads. So let's meet our two cases.
First up, we have a story of chronic starvation. Now, this isn't a sudden shock to the system. No, this is a slow, grinding process, which means the body has time to adapt, to really dig in and fight for survival. This condition is called marasmus. When you see marasmus, the signs are pretty obvious. This is that classic skin and bones look. The body has just torched all of its fat reserves and is now literally eating its own muscle tissue for fuel. But the single most important clue, and you've got to remember this one, is what's not there. There's absolutely no edema, no swelling. And here's the lab result that explains why there's no swelling. We're looking at serum albumin. That's a key protein in your blood that basically acts like a sponge, holding fluid inside your blood vessels. Now, in marasmus, the level is low for sure, but it hasn't completely crashed. It stays just above that critical line of 2.8 grams per deciliter. The body is managing to hold on. This is a vital piece of the puzzle.
So what's the body's game plan here? Well, it's called protein sparing. The body is being incredibly smart, sacrificing fat and even muscle tissue to protect its absolutely essential proteins, like albumin and its vital organs. The best analogy? It's like your phone hitting 10% and automatically switching to low power mode. It kills all the non-essential background apps just to keep the core functions, calls and texts, running as long as possible. It's a tragic but amazing adaptation.
Okay, now let's flip the script to our second case, which is a completely different story. This isn't a slow burn. This is a sudden, catastrophic failure. This is the body under siege from an acute crisis. We call this condition Kwashiorkor. And this, right here, is the paradox we started with. The absolute hallmark feature, the dead giveaway for Kwashiorkor, is edema, swelling. A person with this might actually have a normal body weight, all because they're retaining so much fluid. This isn't the body adapting. It's the body failing. It's just falling apart. Hair can be plucked out easily, skin starts breaking down, and wounds just won't heal. So what's causing all that swelling? Let's go back to that lab test. Here, the serum albumin has absolutely tanked. It's dropped below that critical threshold of 2.8. Without enough albumin to act as that sponge, fluid just starts leaking out of the blood vessels and floods into the surrounding tissues. And that is what causes all the puffiness and swelling.
The physiology here is the total opposite of marasmus. This isn't just about starvation. It's usually triggered by a severe lack of protein plus a major stressor. We're talking a bad infection, major surgery, or trauma. A flood of stress hormones just overwhelms the system, forcing the body to break down everything, including those essential proteins it was trying to save. That low power mode we talked about, it's gone. This is a full-on system crash.
Okay, let's just hit pause for a second and put these two side by side, because this is the absolute core of our detective story. On one side, marasmus looks skeletal, caused by a calorie deficit, albumin is low but hanging on, and the body is adapting. On the other side, Kwashiorkor looks swollen, caused by a protein deficit plus acute stress, albumin is crashed, and the body is failing. Two completely different responses to crisis. Now, you might be wondering, what happens if these two worlds collide? Well, you get a third scenario that's even more dangerous, marasmic Kwashiorkor. This is what happens when a body that was already in survival mode gets slammed with a system-crashing crisis. It's really the perfect storm, and it's terrifying. So you start with a person who is already in that state of marasmus, wasted, emaciated from chronic starvation. Then that person gets hit with something like a severe infection or has to go through major surgery. That sudden, acute stress is the trigger that kicks off the catastrophic protein loss of Kwashiorkor. So the results? You have a patient who is both skeletal and swollen at the same time.
And this quote really says it all. This situation is the absolute worst of both worlds. These patients have the severe muscle wasting from marasmus, but they also have the organ failure and collapsed immune system of Kwashiorkor. The risk of death is incredibly high, and it's a massive, massive challenge to treat.
So, after all that, how does a clinician standing in front of a patient solve this puzzle? Well, it all comes down to a few key clues: observations and tests. Let's lay out the complete toolkit, because telling these conditions apart isn't just an academic exercise. It's a matter of life and death.
This table really pulls it all together, but I want you to look at that last line. Treatment. For a marasmus patient whose body is in low-power mode, you have to reintroduce food very slowly, very cautiously, so you don't shock their system. But for a Kwashiorkor patient whose system is already crashed, you need to be aggressive with nutritional support right away to rebuild those essential proteins. Choosing the wrong approach here can be fatal.
Okay, so let's lock in the key takeaways. If you remember absolutely nothing else from this, remember this. If you see edema, that puffiness, that swelling, you have to think Kwashiorkor. It is the single most important physical sign.
And on the flip side, if you see that severe skin and bones wasting, but the patient is not swollen, then you're looking at marasmus. The body is adapting, it's not failing.
The lab test is what confirms your suspicion. That number, 2.8, is the magic line in the sand. An albumin level below that pretty much seals the diagnosis of Kwashiorkor and tells you exactly why you're seeing all that swelling. And finally, this is why all our detective work actually matters so much. The treatments are polar opposites: slow and steady for the adapter, fast and aggressive for the system crash. Getting this diagnosis right has a direct impact on whether a person survives.
So, we've solved the clinical puzzle, right? We can tell the difference between a body that's in a cautious survival mode and one that's in a catastrophic failure. We even know how to treat them. But that leaves us with a much bigger, much tougher question. The true mystery here isn't just clinical, it's societal. And that, well, that's something to really think about.